All right, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to challenge this idea that hybrid training just makes you average at everything. And in between that, I'm going to be doing some power clean and jerk, and then I got some bench press work to do as well. So this idea that hybrid training or pursuing multiple physical qualities simultaneously just leads to you being average at everything seems kind of logical at face value, because of course if you're just dividing your time and energy among multiple pursuits, how do you even come close to matching the rate of progress that someone would make when all their time and energy is just spent on one singular pursuit? And the reason why hybrid athletes or people who pursue multiple physical goals simultaneously don't end up average at everything is because of the law of diminishing returns. So let's just use hypertrophy or physique development for one example. If you dedicate 100% of your training effort and all of your recovery towards building as much muscle as possible and trying to manage your body composition, like realistically, 80 or 90% of those gains come from the first 50% of your effort. And this applies both to the length of time that we spend pursuing these physical qualities or achievements, but also to how our time is divided up pursuing each of these things. So like quite simply, if you've spent like 5 to 10 years developing your physique, it's very easy for you to add other physical goals or physical qualities into your training, and your physique isn't going to completely disintegrate, because the effort that goes into maintaining the physique that you built pales in comparison to the effort that you had to put in to achieve that physique in the first place. This is how all these athletes with really solid physiques end up putting up these solid marathon times. They've just spent so much time developing their physique in the past, they don't have to dedicate much time to maintaining it. They're getting extraordinary diminishing returns when it comes to just that singular physical pursuit, but then all of a sudden when they're trying to be the most jacked marathon runner as possible, they're able to put up really solid marathon times with a physique that absolutely rinses everyone that they're competing against. I know a bunch of people out there already rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, do that many hybrid athletes really have incredible mind-blowing physiques? And it just depends on your lens. Like if you're comparing them to IFBB pros, obviously these hybrid athletes aren't looking that stacked. But when you compare it to the average Joe, some of these physiques are insane. And that's kind of one of the other points I want to make in this video. Like, who the hell are you comparing yourself to? Like, I don't compare my Olympic lifts to Olympians. I try to compare it to just like what I see other average Joes doing. For me personally, like, yeah, I identify with like the hybrid, or really I just call what I do strength and conditioning, but it sort of gets thrown under the hybrid banner with the way fitness trends go these days on social media. And it's kind of interesting, like usually a lot of people sort of use this prior physique development of a lot of really successful hybrid athletes to point out the ineffectiveness of hybrid training, like saying like, oh well, how much muscle have these people really built since they started pursuing all these other concurrent goals? And I think that that's actually the beauty of hybrid training or the hybrid lifestyle. We put so much effort into acquiring these physical qualities or pursuing these certain physical goals, but then you hit these sticking points, and like honestly, I think one of the things that makes training genuinely addictive is that rate of progression. So rather than just abandoning that thing where your progress is slowing down or you're getting a little bit frustrated or bored with it, you can just reduce the dose of it you're doing and pursue something completely new. And you can maintain all those gains you made in that prior physical pursuit as you're adding this entirely new skill set or building these entirely new physical qualities alongside them. I like to think of it a lot like that glove that Thanos was trying to fill up with all those gemstones that had all the special powers. Like, initially you've just got this like physique development gemstone, then you might add like a cardio gemstone, then you might add like a speed or a power gemstone or a gymnastics or a skill-based gemstone to it. So yeah, maybe a lot of your effort is just going into acquiring one of those new gemstones at any given time, but then you've just got this body of work that you've accumulated over all the years, which is going to stay relatively loyal. And I sort of see both sides of the coin, where a lot of critics of hybrid training, they see it as weak or just running away from these diminishing returns. I think they think that, there's so much honor trying to pursue this singular physical pursuit, even if the gains are so hard fought for and minuscule, like they just find that there's so much reward in just trying to add another millimeter to their biceps, even if it takes a whole nother year. And then they watch these other people who've reached that similar point of diminishing returns with their physique development or their strength development or whatever that singular pursuit is, then going on to trying a whole bunch of other physical pursuits, enjoying those beginner gains again. And I think there might be a little bit of jealousy there. Well, it just comes down to like ultimately why you enjoy training. Like a big part of why I enjoy training is making progress. So for me, all these various physical pursuits, they give me that feeling of progress, which I think is amazing. It's just another reminder why you need to do your fitness journey for yourself, not to impress other people. And that sort of leads to my next point about like does hybrid training make you really average at everything? It just depends what your standards are, especially when it comes to posting your fitness journey online, because sure enough, when you post your physique online, people are comparing it to the best physiques that they see on social media. When you post your lifts on social media, people are comparing it to the best powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters that we've ever seen. For me, my hybrid achievements, I think so many of them are well above average, and I'm incredibly proud of them. It gives me so much fulfillment. Like if I could go back in a time machine, like 5 or even 7 years, and go tell my former self that I can clean 140 kilos, I can bench 120 kilos, my arms are getting bigger, my legs are getting bigger, I'm also swimming 50-meter PBs in the pool, I'm surfing better than ever, I can go out and I have a reasonable chance of hitting a 5K PB, I can run a half marathon without any training or any notice. All of those things are really cool and really meaningful to me, and like at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Not what random cunts on the internet are saying about you, but like how do you feel about yourself and how do you genuinely feel about your own achievements? And are you shaping your fitness journey for yourself or just for other people and what they think? Anyway, that was a lot of yapping. Let's do some sets. It's not that hybrid training does actually make you average at everything, but also the other side of that coin is pursuing one thing just makes you shit at everything else. Like, that's one of the things I like about just doing regular S&C, or like I said, a lot of people will call that hybrid training now, just not being shit at anything. I think that that's really cool. If you want to be pretty good at everything, you should check out my group programming. It's less than $7 a week. It's 4 workouts a week, and then we've got some additional sprint and acceleration work on top of that. You get access to me for questions or form checks as well. You get to be a part of a community of like-minded people, all trying to get bigger, stronger, and faster together. I just think it's a really sick program. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, I write it, but it produces sick results for a lot of different people, and it's a really great deal. So check that out in the description below if you're interested. Feels a bit heavy for 90 kilos, but it's second session back into jerk, so I'm not too worried. It's kind of strange how like the general population in fitness never really want to acknowledge that strength and conditioning has existed for close to a fucking century now. 5 years ago, when you're doing strength and conditioning in the gym, people will look at it and be like, oh, you're doing CrossFit. Now when you do strength and conditioning, people are like, oh, hybrid training. Like I said, I'm not offended by labels people slap on things, it's just funny to me. But yeah, so I PB'd my clean this year. I cleaned 140 kilos. I PB'd my back squat, squatted 190 kilos, also PB'd my front squat with 162 kilos. I put like 15 kilos on my bench press this year. That's been on an absolute tear. And honestly, that's pretty reflective of the results we've been getting in the group. Like, people have been hitting all sorts of PBs in various pursuits or just winning competitions in their sport, but the most common PB for people to hit on the program right now is a bench press PB. That aspect of the program is so dialed right now. All right, I'm gonna knock out a couple of sets there and then I'll catch up with you on bench press. All right, so one of the bench variations I'm playing around with at the moment, I've just been doing a lot of close to grip benching because I was spending a lot of time just arching heavily and reducing my range of motion with a wide grip as much as possible, because my goal was to bench 120 kilos. I didn't really care how I did it. I did a crazy ape index, so my ROM was still pretty crazy anyway. But yeah, just going back to a bit more of a flat back, a bit more of a conservative or narrower grip, but I'm evening it out a little bit just by doing a block press variation, because my elbows will basically touch the floor if I bench like that with a close grip. So this just ends up in a sweet spot where I get a decent amount of ROM, my grip's in a lot closer, but I still feel my pecs working a lot through the whole range of motion. whenever I end up in like that super deep elbow position, it just makes it all really shouldery and I can't really feel my pecs working anymore. Like whatever, maybe it's not gonna carry over to my comp style bench press much, but I've just sort of just given it a go. It is interesting to sort of think about how people define hybrid training differently. I mean, do they really? If we're going to credit hybrid training to anyone, it should be Alex Viada. He was one who wrote the original book on hybrid training, and with his own training, got some sick hybrid results. But Alex doesn't define hybrid training as just mixed modal training, because again, like we already have a word for that, it's strength and conditioning. You know, I have this belief that rather than interfering with each other, all these different physical qualities actually end up quite complementary at the end of the day, especially if you're someone who plays a sport. Like most athletic pursuits are an expression of multiple physical qualities simultaneously, so your physical preparation for that should involve the simultaneous development of a lot of different physical qualities. But how Alex Viada defines hybrid training is specifically looking for two different fitness qualities or fitness pursuits that are as divergent from each other as possible. And that's why the classic one is powerlifting. Like, you know, the power lifts take about a second to complete, maybe 3 to 4 seconds if it's a real grinder. And then pairing that with marathons and ultras and trail running, you know, these events that take some of these events taking up to like 8 hours. You know, he would sort of look at those as two polar opposing pursuits, and they're not very complementary. I just don't think it's that fair to say that hybrid training or pursuing multiple physical goals makes you average at everything, because like when you look at the way most people train for just one physical pursuit, they end up average at that anyway, or like slightly above average. Like compared to just being like a little bit of a weapon at everything, like I don't know, I just don't look at that as average. I know what's out there. I know what the world records are in a lot of these singular pursuits. I know what the average Joe can do in these pursuits because I'm training a lot of them and have done so for the last 10 years. I just haven't seen any good evidence, like in the literature or even just anecdotally through my life experience, that sort of shows that you can't get 90% as good at someone who's giving their all to just one pursuit while pursuing like 4 or 5 things simultaneously. And again, it just all comes back to that sort of economic law of diminishing returns. So yeah, if you want to make sick gains in absolutely everything, like it can be done. You just need a decent amount of time to train, and you need to sort of open up your time horizon for achieving a lot of your standards or your goals in these individual pursuits. So, you know, one of my goals eventually would be like bench 3 blues. That'd be amazing. But because I'm not all in on powerlifting, I just have to manage my expectations about how quickly I'm going to reach that goal. It's not an interference effect, it's just thinking about the total training we can do and the total ability of our body to adapt to different things, or even one thing. Like because I have 5 different goals that relate to different physical qualities, it does not mean that I'm going to make 1/5 of the progress of someone who's just pursuing one of them, or it's going to take me 5 times as long to reach these goals. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Again, because of that diminishing returns, dedicating your whole training schedule towards bodybuilding, your whole training schedule towards running faster, or your whole training schedule towards getting stronger, like 50% of that training, you're getting extraordinarily diminished returns on that, versus you could donate it to some other quality and just get like literally noob gains at it. And I think you should ask yourself that. You're like, am I hooked on this pursuit just for the sake of it? Or do I actually do these things because I like the feeling of progress? I think as humans, like a lot of us just enjoy the feeling of getting better at something, whatever that thing is. Or maybe you do have a genuine desire for one of these things more than any other thing, but at the end of the day, we're still hooked on this just general idea of progression. If you're interested in applying these concepts to your clients, I recommend you check out my course, GPP Level 1. I've got pre-recorded modules on how we approach the training of every single one of these physical qualities, as well as you get access to me through a Discord. We have 3 live video calls a week where you can ask questions or show me how you're putting these things together in programs, and I can give you feedback on that or support. It's insane value, but all the information for that is down below, so check it out if you're interested. If you are someone who's taken a more hybrid approach to your training, you know, maybe someone who was pretty jacked or strong and you've decided to get into a little bit of running and you notice your lifts are really suffering or your physique is starting to look a little bit worse. With all the people I've worked with where we've solved this problem, it usually comes down to a quality issue. They're trying to cram in too much training and their quality is just in the toilet. It's either that or they're not managing their externals enough to recover from the amount of training required to make positive adaptations in two different pursuits. But yeah, more often than not, it's just been about reducing the total training dose and then people all of a sudden just start thriving. You'll be a good hybrid coach once you understand the minimum effective dose for each physical quality, which is different on an individual basis, but there's some pretty solid heuristics, especially there's an emerging body of evidence when it comes to strength training, especially strength training, not so much hypertrophy, where the minimum effective dose is extraordinarily low. So it's so easy to find space for other physical pursuits in your training if you're smart with your dose. Like I said, when you're not smart with your dose, people typically end up overwhelmed, training quality goes through the floor, recovery goes to shit as well, and then you just end up spinning your wheels or even worse, regressing. So if hybrid training ruined your physique or ruined your lifts, probably just doing a little bit too much. A little bit too much lifting, a little too much of the running as well. It's not like you have to stay at this really minimum effective dose baseline forever, but just while you sort of start out on this journey and get things under control, that can be a really good strategy to do that. And it's knowing your effective minimal dose that'll give you the confidence when you do want to push training a little bit harder to do that much more deliberately. Whereas a lot of people are just redlining themselves without even really realizing that. Anyway, I've been yapping for about 40 minutes now. I don't know how much of this is actually going to make the cut, but I'll have another video out in the next couple of days. So hope you enjoyed this one. Subscribe, check out the links down below, and I'll see you in a couple of days with another video.